The stars had seen many empires rise and fall. They had watched species build great civilizations and tear them down with war. But in all the long history of the galaxy, no one had ever seen anything quite like humanity. For 300 years, humans had been members of the Galactic Council. In all that time, they had never fired a weapon in anger. Not once. While other species fought bloody wars over territory and resources, humans sent doctors and engineers. While empires conquered and enslaved, humans built schools and hospitals on broken worlds. Admiral Te Wujin stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the endless black of space. He was a tall man, with gray at his temples, and calm eyes that had seen much, but judged little. He commanded the Earth Defense Fleet, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. And yet, in his 30 years of service, he had never ordered his ships to attack anyone. His fleet existed to protect, to rescue, to help. The weapons on his ships had only ever been used in training exercises. His soldiers had only ever fought simulations. Some people thought this made humanity weak. Te knew better. Far away on the council station, his younger sister Hana was speaking to a room full of alien ambassadors. She wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, and her voice was steady and kind as she argued for peace. The border dispute between the Velith Empire and the Krath Collective can be resolved through negotiation, she said. There is no need for more death. Let us find a middle path. The Velith ambassador laughed. He was a tall creature with scales like polished metal and eyes that held nothing but contempt. The soft ones, speak of peace again, he said to the room. How touching. How useless. Hana did not react to the insult. She had heard it many times before. All humans had. The galaxy called them soft, weak, foolish. They said humans were naive children who did not understand how the universe really worked. But Hana remembered what her grandmother had told her long ago. We are not peaceful because we are weak, the old woman had said. We are peaceful because we have seen what we become when we are not, and we choose to be better. Commander Yuri Park sat in her office on Earth, reading reports that made her stomach tight with worry. She was the head of human intelligence, and she knew things that most people did not want to know. The Mortith Dominion was growing stronger. For 50 years, she had watched them expand their territory through violence and fear. She had written hundreds of reports warning the Galactic Council about the threat they posed, and for 50 years, her warnings had been ignored. The Mortith were not like the other aggressive species in the galaxy. The Velith and the Krath fought for power and wealth. The Mortith fought because they believed they were superior to all other life. They saw other species as insects, to be crushed. And lately, they had been looking at human space with hungry eyes. Yuri sent another report to the council. She knew they would not listen. They never did. But she had to try. On the colony world of New Busan, life was good. 12 million humans lived there, spread across green continents and blue oceans. They had built beautiful cities and peaceful farms. Children played in parks and went to schools where they learned about art and science and history. Admiral Te's daughter, Sua, was there, visiting her Aunt Hana for a cultural festival. She was 12 years old, with her father's calm eyes and her mother's bright smile. She loved music and dancing, and asking questions about everything she saw. Ambassador Hana had taken a break from her work on the council station to spend time with her niece. They walked through the festival together, eating sweet treats and watching performers dance in colorful costumes. Aunt Hana, Sua asked, why do the other species call us soft? Hana looked down at her niece and smiled. Because they do not understand us, she said. They think that because we choose not to fight, we cannot fight. They think kindness is the same as weakness. Is it? No, little one. It takes great strength to be kind when others are cruel. It takes courage to build when others destroy. Never forget that. Sua nodded seriously. And Hana felt a wave of love for this child who carried so much hope for the future. Far above them, hidden in the darkness between stars, something was coming. Mordith warships moved through space like shadows, their weapons charged and ready. They had chosen their target carefully. A peaceful colony, with no military defenses. An easy kill that would send a message to the entire galaxy. The Mordith commander looked at the blue and green world growing larger on his screen. He felt nothing but contempt for the creatures living there. Soft ones, weak ones, they would burn. And their deaths would prove what the Mordith had always known. Only the strong deserve to survive. On the council station, the Velith ambassador was still mocking Ambassador Hana. Other delegates laughed along with him. The humans were such easy targets, always talking about peace and cooperation. So boring, so predictable. No one noticed the warning signals flashing on the emergency channels. No one was paying attention to the distress calls starting to come from the edge of human space. And on New Busan, Sua and Hana watched fireworks light up the night sky, not knowing that real fire was coming. Fire that would change everything. Fire that would teach the galaxy a lesson written in blood and ash. The age of human peace was about to end. And when it did, the stars themselves would tremble. Admiral Tay sat alone in his quarters, looking at a picture of his daughter. He did not know that in a few hours, his world would shatter. He did not know that the kind and gentle man he had been would die with his daughter, replaced by something the galaxy had never seen. A human with nothing left to lose. A human ready to teach the universe the true cost of cruelty. The Mordith thought they knew what they were doing. They thought they were about to destroy a weak and helpless species. They had no idea what they were about to wake up. The first explosion came without warning. One moment, the city of New Seoul was full of life and laughter. The next moment, it was gone. A beam of light from the sky turned buildings to dust and people to ash in the blink of an eye. Ambassador Hana grabbed her niece and ran. Around them, the world was ending. The beautiful festival grounds became a hellscape of fire and screaming. People ran in every direction. But there was nowhere to run. The death came from above, and it came for everyone. Aunt Hana! Sua cried, her small hand gripping her aunt's fingers so tightly it hurt. What is happening? Hana did not answer. She could not answer. She just ran, pulling the child behind her, looking for shelter that did not exist. The sky was full of Mordith ships now, dozens of them, and they were firing on everything. Houses, schools, hospitals. Nothing was spared. A beam struck the ground 10 meters ahead of them. The blast threw Hana backward, and she lost her grip on Sua's hand. When she opened her eyes, the world was ringing and blurry. She tried to stand, but could not feel her legs. Sua, she whispered. Sua. The last thing she saw was fire falling from the sky like rain. Then there was only darkness. On the council station, the emergency channels finally broke through. A young aide rushed into the meeting room where delegates were still laughing at old jokes. His face was white with horror. New Busan, he gasped. The Mordith. They are attacking New Busan. The laughter stopped. Everyone turned to the main screen as footage began to stream in. Cities burning. People running. Ships firing again and again into crowds of civilians. The Velith ambassador, who had been mocking humans just moments before, stared at the screen with his mouth open. Even he had never seen anything like this. This was not war. This was slaughter. For 6 hours, the Mordith ships rained fire on New Busan. They did not ask for surrender. They did not make demands. They simply killed. When their weapons finally went silent, 12 million people were dead. The beautiful green world was a ball of ash and glass and memory. Admiral Tay received the news in his quarters. The officer who delivered it could not meet his eyes. The words came out broken and wrong, like they did not make sense in any language. His daughter was dead. His sister was dead. 12 million of his people were dead. Tay sat in silence for a long time. The officer left, not knowing what else to do. Outside, the ship hummed with the quiet sounds of space travel. Inside, something was breaking. Something was dying. And something else was being born. When Tay finally stood, his hands were steady and his eyes were dry. But the man who had commanded a fleet of peace was gone. In his place stood someone new, someone cold, someone filled with a quiet rage that had no bottom. The United Earth Parliament gathered in emergency session. Representatives from every nation on Earth and every colony in human space sat in grim silence as Admiral Tay walked to the podium. His uniform was perfect. His voice was calm, but everyone who saw him felt a chill run down their spine. For 300 years, Tay said, we chose peace. We chose to build instead of destroy. We chose to heal instead of harm. We did this because we believed it was right, not because we were weak, not because we were afraid. He paused and looked around the room. Every eye was on him. Today, 12 million of our people were murdered, not in battle, not in war. They were slaughtered like animals by an enemy who saw our kindness as weakness. Among the dead are my sister, who spent her life working for peace, and my daughter, who was 12 years old and had never hurt anyone in her life. His voice did not shake. His face did not change. But something in his eyes made strong men look away. The Mordath wanted to send a message. They wanted to show the galaxy what happens to the soft ones. They wanted to teach us fear. He placed his hands on the podium. They have made a mistake. We are not afraid. We are angry. And now we will teach them something they have forgotten. We will teach them what humanity becomes when we have nothing left to lose. The vote was unanimous. Every single representative voted for war. Not a limited response. Not a measured retaliation. Total war. Complete and absolute war until the Mordath Dominion no longer existed. General Dae Sung Ho was 70 years old. He had spent his entire career writing battle plans that everyone said would never be used. He knew more about warfare than anyone alive, and he had prayed every day that his knowledge would stay on paper forever. When the call came, he put on his old uniform and reported for duty without a word. Dr. Nari Kim opened vaults that had been sealed for 200 years. Inside were weapons that humanity had built in secret and hidden in shame. Weapons they had sworn never to use. Weapons that could break worlds. She looked at them for a long moment, then began giving orders. Across human space, shipyards that the galaxy did not know existed roared to life. Soldiers who had trained their whole lives for a war they never wanted woke up and put on their armor. Factories that had been making medical supplies switched to making instruments of death. Commander Yuri Park, whose warnings had been ignored for 50 years, walked into her new command center and got to work. She had spent decades studying the Mordath. She knew their secrets, their weaknesses, their fears. Now that knowledge would be used. The Galactic Council received a transmission from Earth. It was short and simple. The age of mercy is over. The Velith ambassador read the message and felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Fear. He had mocked the humans for their softness. He had laughed at their kindness. Now, looking at that message, he realized he had made a terrible mistake. They all had. The soft ones were not soft anymore. The patient ones had run out of patience. And the galaxy was about to learn why humanity had chosen peace. It was not because they could not fight. It was because they knew exactly how terrible they could be, if they did. The Mordath commander who had ordered the attack on New Busan was celebrating. His name was spoken with respect across the Dominion. He had done what no one else had dared. He had crushed the soft ones and shown the galaxy that the Mordath were the true masters of the stars. He was drinking wine in his quarters when his ship shook. Alarms screamed. Officers shouted. He ran to the bridge, still holding his cup, and looked at the screens with confusion. Human ships were everywhere. They had appeared from nowhere, dozens of them, surrounding the Mordith base at Keth Station like wolves around a wounded animal. "Impossible," the commander whispered. He was wrong. Captain Jin Huan sat on the bridge of his destroyer, calm as still water. He was a small man, with a quiet voice and eyes that saw everything. He had spent 20 years commanding rescue ships and cargo vessels. He had never fired a shot in combat. Today, that would change. "All ships," he said into his communicator, "begin attack." The human fleet moved as one, like a single living creature. They did not hesitate. They did not show mercy. Weapons that the galaxy had never seen tore through Mordith shields like they were made of paper. Ships that had terrorized 100 worlds exploded in silence. The Mordith commander screamed orders that no one could follow. His fleet was dying around him. His sensors could not track the human ships. His weapons could not hit them. It was like fighting ghosts. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, Keth Station was rubble, and every Mordith ship was destroyed. Not a single human vessel was lost. Across the galaxy, species that had called humans soft watched the footage in shock. The Velith Emperor demanded to see the recording 5 times, certain it must be fake. It was not. Lieutenant Un Bora flew her fighter through the wreckage of the Mordith fleet. She was 28 years old, and until 2 weeks ago, her job had been flying medical supplies to disaster zones. She had never thought of herself as a warrior. But something had changed when she heard about New Busan. Something hard and cold had grown in her heart. She had relatives on that world. Friends. Now, they were all gone. When she fired her weapons, she felt nothing. No guilt, no hesitation. Only a terrible, empty purpose. "Enemy fighter on your 6, her wingman called. Bora did not panic. She did not even speed up. She simply waited, counting the seconds in her head, then pulled her ship into a turn that should have been impossible. The Mordith fighter shot past her, confused. She destroyed it with a single shot. In the first month of the war, her squadron destroyed 47 Mordith capital ships. Military experts across the galaxy studied her tactics. They could not understand how someone with no combat experience could fight like that. They did not understand that Bora was not fighting for glory or victory. She was fighting for the dead. And the dead gave her strength that the living could not match. The Mordith High Command gathered to plan their response. They still did not believe what had happened at Keth Station. It must have been a trick, a surprise attack that would not work twice. They would send their full armada and crush the humans once and for all. 50,000 Mordith warships gathered at the Varus Nebula. It was the largest fleet the Dominion had ever assembled. The commander looked at his forces and smiled. No one could stand against such power, not even the suddenly dangerous humans. General Dae Sung-ho studied the enemy formation and saw exactly what he expected. The Mordith were predictable. They always had been. He had spent 40 years learning how they thought, how they moved, how they fought. And now, he would use that knowledge to destroy them. He gave his orders quietly. His staff officers carried them out without question. Human ships moved into position, hidden in the swirling gases of the nebula, like sharks waiting in dark water. The battle began at dawn, Earth time. The Mordith fleet advanced in their standard formation, confident in their numbers. They expected the humans to meet them head-on, ship against ship, strength against strength. The humans did not do that. Instead, they attacked from every direction at once. Small, fast ships struck at the edges of the Mordith formation, then vanished before the enemy could respond. Heavy cruisers appeared from nowhere, fired devastating volleys, and disappeared again. It was not a battle. It was chaos. The Mordith commander tried to organize his fleet, but every order he gave was wrong. Every formation he tried fell apart. It was like the humans knew what he was going to do before he did it. They did. General Dae had predicted every move. For 3 days, the battle raged. The nebula, filled with burning ships and floating debris. The Mordath threw everything they had at the humans, but nothing worked. Their numbers meant nothing. Their strength meant nothing. On the morning of the fourth day, the Mordath fleet broke. The survivors turned and ran, leaving thousands of their comrades behind. The humans did not chase them. They did not need to. The Mordath armada was gone, destroyed, erased from existence. Admiral Tay received the news on his flagship. He nodded once, then turned back to the stars. There was no celebration, no cheering, just quiet satisfaction and the promise of more to come. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. The species that had laughed at humanity for 300 years now looked at them with different eyes, not with contempt, not with amusement, with fear. Commander Yuri Park sat in her office, reading reports from Mordath space. Their government was in chaos. Their military was shattered. Their people were starting to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. It is not enough, she said to herself. Not yet. She was right. Humanity was just getting started. Dr. Nari Kim stood in her laboratory, looking at the weapons that were still waiting to be used. The Mordath had seen nothing yet. They had felt nothing yet. The real fury was still to come. In the ruins of New Busan, wind blew ash across empty streets. 12 million ghosts waited in silence for justice, and justice was coming. Slow and sure and absolutely unstoppable. The humans had remembered what they were, and the galaxy would never forget. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. The Great Hall, which had seen 1,000 years of debates and agreements, was silent with fear. Every delegate sat still in their seat, watching the reports from the front lines with wide eyes. The humans were not stopping. Every day brought news of another Mordath world falling, another fleet destroyed, another fortress reduced to dust. The species that had built hospitals for strangers was now tearing apart an empire with cold efficiency. The Velith Emperor rose from his seat. His scales had lost their shine. His voice had lost its pride. "We must intervene," he said. "The humans have gone mad. They will destroy everything." High Counselor Vorith was the oldest member of the council. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched the humans for 300 years, and he had always understood them better than the others. Now he looked at the Velith Emperor with something like contempt. "You mocked them," he said quietly. "When they built hospitals, you called them weak. When they fed refugees, you called them foolish. When their colony burned, you laughed." The Emperor's face twisted with anger. "That is in the past. We must think of the future. If the humans are not stopped, they will come for us next." Vorith shook his head. "No, they will not, because unlike the Mordath, we did not murder 12 million of their children." He turned to the rest of the council. "I will not vote to save the Mordath from justice. They brought this upon themselves." The vote was close, but in the end, the council decided to do nothing. They would watch. They would wait. And they would pray that humanity's anger was satisfied with one enemy. Admiral Tay led the final campaign from his flagship, the Remembrance. He had ordered the names of every victim of New Busan etched into the hull of his ship. 12 million names, tiny and perfect, covering every surface. He walked among them every day, reading them, remembering them. His daughter's name was above the door to his quarters. He touched it every time he entered and every time he left. The Mordath had 3 great fortress worlds at the heart of their territory. These were the symbols of their power, the proof of their strength. Each one had defenses that should have been impossible to break. Each one fell in a single day. Commander Yuri Park had spent decades building a network of spies and informants inside Mordath space. Now that network was active, feeding her every secret, every code, every weakness. When human ships arrived at each fortress, they knew exactly where to strike. The first fortress, Karak Prime, fell before its commanders even knew they were under attack. Yuri's agents had disabled their shields from the inside. Human troops poured through the gaps and took the command center in less than an hour. The second fortress, Mordath Station, tried to flee. General Day had predicted this. Human ships were waiting at every possible escape route. The fortress's defenders surrendered after seeing their fleet destroyed in minutes. The third fortress, the greatest of them all, chose to fight to the end. Dr. Nari Kim finally used the weapons she had been holding in reserve. Beams of light that could crack a moon in half. Missiles that could pass through any shield. The fortress lasted longer than the others, but in the end, it too fell silent. Captain Jin Huan led the ground assault on the Mordath homeworld. His soldiers moved through the streets like shadows, taking building after building, block after block. The Mordath defenders fought hard, but they were outmatched in every way. Jin had not wanted to be a warrior. He had wanted to spend his life helping people, not killing them. But every time he felt doubt, he remembered the footage from New Busan. He remembered children running from fire. He remembered the silence that followed the screaming. Then his doubt went away, and he did what needed to be done. Lieutenant Unbora flew cover for the ground troops, her squadron sweeping the skies clean of enemy fighters. She had stopped counting her kills weeks ago. The numbers did not matter. Only the mission mattered. One day, her wingman asked her if she felt anything when she destroyed an enemy ship. She thought about the question for a long time. "I feel like I am paying a debt," she finally said. "A debt that can never be fully paid. But I will keep trying until I cannot try anymore." The Mordath government sent a message asking for negotiations. Admiral Tay read the message and replied with a single word. No. They sent another message, offering to pay reparations, to return territory, to do anything the humans wanted. Tay did not even bother to respond. The final battle for the Mordath homeworld lasted one day. General Day had planned it perfectly. Every move, every strike, every advance was exactly where it needed to be. The Mordath military, which had terrorized 100 species for 1,000 years, was broken like glass. When the sun set on the Mordath capital, human soldiers stood in the great plaza where the Dominion's leaders had once celebrated their conquests. The Mordath flag was lowered. In its place rose nothing. The humans did not plant their own flag. They did not claim the world for themselves. They had come for justice, not conquest. The Mordath leaders were brought before Admiral Tay in chains. They were proud creatures who had never bowed to anyone. Now they knelt in the dust, broken and afraid. "You could have left us alone," Tay said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "We were no threat to you. We wanted nothing from you. All you had to do was leave us in peace." The Mordath High Commander looked up at him with hate in his eyes. Tay nodded slowly. "And now? Are we still weak?" The commander said nothing. There was nothing to say. The Mordath Dominion was dissolved that day. Their fleet was dismantled. Their military was disbanded. Their territory was divided among the species they had once conquered. They were allowed to keep their homeworld, but nothing else. It was not mercy. It was a lesson. A permanent reminder of what happened to those who mistook kindness for weakness. Commander Yuri Park watched the Mordath leaders being led away and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, just emptiness. "Is it over?" her aide asked. She shook her head. "War is never truly over, but this part is done." Somewhere in the ruins of the Mordath capital, a child was crying. Human soldiers found her hiding in the rubble and brought her to a medical station. A human doctor treated her wounds and gave her food. Even now, even here, humanity could not help being what they were. Healers, helpers, builders. But the galaxy had learned that there was something else beneath that kindness. Something that slept most of the time, but could wake if pushed too far. Something that even the stars were afraid of. 1 year had passed since the war ended. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. Old empires walked softly now. Ancient rivalries were set aside, and at the center of it all, humanity had returned to what they had always been. Hospital ships flew through space once more, carrying doctors and medicine to worlds in need. Relief convoys brought food and supplies to refugee camps. Engineers rebuilt what war had destroyed. The humans were helping again, just as they had for 300 years. But something was different now. When human ships arrived at a troubled world, no one laughed. No one called them soft. No one mocked their kindness. Everyone remembered what happened to the last species that had made that mistake. Admiral Tae Woojin stood before the Galactic Council. He wore his uniform with the same quiet dignity he had always shown. His face was calm, but there were new lines around his eyes, new shadows that would never fade. The Great Hall was full. Every species had sent their highest representatives. No one wanted to miss this moment. No one wanted to be seen as disrespectful. Tae looked around the room slowly, meeting each pair of eyes. Some delegates looked away. Others nodded with something like shame. The Velith Emperor sat in his seat like a statue, his scales dull and his pride broken. "I came to this council many times," Tae began. "My sister came even more often. We spoke of peace. We asked for cooperation. We warned you of dangers that were growing in the darkness between stars." He paused. The silence was so complete that everyone could hear their own heartbeat. "You did not listen. You called us soft. You called us weak. You said we did not understand how the universe really worked." His voice remained steady, but there was iron beneath the words. "When 12 million of our people were murdered, some of you laughed. Some of you said we deserved it. Some of you did nothing at all." The Velith Emperor flinched. Others shifted in their seats, unable to meet the human's gaze. "We did not want this war. We spent 3 centuries proving our commitment to peace. We built your hospitals. We fed your refugees. We carried your wounded from battlefields that were not our concern. We buried your dead when no one else would." Tae's hands rested on the podium, steady and still. "And you thanked us with contempt. You repaid our kindness with mockery. You watched our children burn and did nothing." He let the words hang in the air for a long moment. "That is over now. The Mordath are gone. Their empire is dust. Their name will be forgotten while the stars still shine. We have shown you what we are capable of when we are pushed beyond our limits." He straightened his uniform and looked around the room one final time. "We are returning to peace. Our hospital ships are flying again. Our relief convoys are moving again. We will continue to help those who need help, to heal those who need healing, to build where others have destroyed." His eyes grew hard. "But let this day serve as a permanent reminder to every species in this galaxy. Humanity chooses peace. We do not submit to it. We are not kind because we are weak. We are kind because we have seen what we become when we are not, and we choose to be better." He leaned forward slightly. "If any power in this galaxy ever again mistakes our kindness for weakness, if any species ever again thinks that our mercy means we cannot strike, if any empire ever again dreams of doing to us what the Mordath did, remember this moment. Remember the Mordath, and ask yourselves if you are ready to follow them into oblivion." He did not wait for a response. He simply turned and walked out of the Great Hall, his footsteps echoing in the silence he left behind. No one spoke for a very long time. General Dae Sung-ho retired to a small house on Earth, on a quiet hillside overlooking the sea. He planted a garden and spent his days tending flowers and vegetables. He refused all requests for interviews. He did not write his memoirs. He did not accept awards or honors. Sometimes, young officers came to ask him questions about strategy and tactics. He would give them tea and talk about gardening instead. The ones who were smart enough understood that this was its own kind of lesson. Commander Yuri Park became the head of the new Galactic Intelligence Network. It was her job to make sure that humanity was never caught by surprise again. She built a system of watchers and listeners that spanned the known universe. Nothing happened in the galaxy without her knowing about it. She never forgot that her warnings had been ignored for 50 years. She never let anyone else forget it either. Captain Jin Huan returned to rescue operations. He commanded the same ships that had carried him into battle. But now, they carried doctors instead of soldiers, medicine instead of weapons. He saved more lives in the first year of peace than he had taken in the entire war. Some nights, he dreamed of the fighting. He dreamed of the faces of those he had killed. But when he woke, he would look at the reports of lives saved, and the dreams would fade. Lieutenant Yun Bora joined him. She flew medical supply runs across the galaxy, her fighter skills now used to navigate dangerous space and reach isolated worlds. She was older now, quieter, but sometimes, when she saw a child receive medicine that would save their life, she smiled. It was not happiness, exactly, but it was close enough. Admiral Tay visited New Busan every year on the anniversary of the attack. The planet was being rebuilt, slowly and carefully. Trees were growing where cities had burned. Rivers ran clear where ash had fallen. Life was returning. On the site where his daughter had died, there was now a garden. 12 million flowers, one for every soul that had been lost. Tay walked among them alone, touching the petals, reading the names carved into the stones. He always brought 2 flowers with him, one for his sister Hana, one for his daughter Sua. He placed them at the center of the garden, where a small fountain played music that sounded like laughter. Then he would sit for hours, watching the wind move through the flowers, listening to the water sing. He did not speak. There was nothing to say. The dead knew everything that was in his heart. As the sun set on the rebuilt world, Tay looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, a galaxy full of species was learning to live with a new understanding, a new truth. Humanity was kind. Humanity was gentle. Humanity chose peace. But humanity also remembered. And humanity never forgave those who hurt their children. The stars would burn and die. Empires would rise and fall. Species would come and go like waves on a cosmic shore. But the lesson of the Mortith would last forever. Whispered from parent to child, across 1,000 worlds. Written in the histories of 100 civilizations. Carved into the memory of the universe itself. Beware the fury of a patient people. Beware the wrath of the peaceful. Beware the gentle ones who choose not to fight. For when they finally draw their sword, even the gods look away. And the darkness between the stars holds its breath in fear.